Due to the fact that, as of late, Scump has been playing some old Men of OpTic game battles matches, I wanted to go back and review one of these maps from the Scrim with the Dallas Empire. So, just to kind of go over it as we hop into this, we are obviously on board with Scump as we're on the map Raid. And there are some key mistakes that OpTic makes where they give up rotations, they don't rotate in time, and I feel like there are times where we show the good things that OpTic do, and there are times that we show the bad things that OpTic do. But in this one, I feel like there were just some mistakes that they made that could have been fixed, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So just in case you haven't watched my videos over the last couple days, about 4 days ago, they had a big Scrim day. They ran through the maps against Dallas. They ran through the maps against Atlanta. For Atlanta, they ended up going 3-2, which could have been 4-1 had they been able to get in that final hill. I don't know if it was a glitch or what really happened, but it's pretty safe to say that outside of Checkmate, which is by far their worst map, they basically won all of those other hard points against Atlanta. And then later in the day, I don't know if they were just so high from the Atlanta match or what, but when it came down to this Scrim against Dallas, it wasn't quite the same story. So Garrison and Crossroads were close, but this one they lost by like 100. Checkmate they lost by like 80. Moscow they lost by like 70. So none of the other maps were really all that close. So I just wanted to go through and just kind of talk through this map because, again, I absolutely love Raid. I think it's the best Call of Duty map of all time. I'm sure we're going to see it a lot this year. So I figure the more we can break it down, there's a pretty good chance that a lot of us haven't really seen a lot of Raid because it's been a long time. I think it was 2013 when Black Ops 2 came out. So it's been a while, but so far we'll talk through the first set of rotations. When it comes to the second set of rotations, we'll turn up the team comm so you guys can hear exactly what they're talking about. But so far, things for Chicago obviously haven't really gone their way, and you're actually seeing even more of that right now. So forget the fact that they're down already by about 60, 70 points, but they got slayed out trying to get inside of P1, right? Didn't go well. They didn't get the majority of time inside of P1, which is what it should be a pretty big goal if you get that left side of the map spawn. If you don't get the spawn that's beneficial towards P2, it's a little bit more of an emphasis. You got to place a little bit more of an emphasis on getting points inside of P1 to counter the lead that'll probably be built up inside of P2. So as it rotated towards P2, they had to try to rotate and get map position back jungle by rotating through laundry. They weren't successful at that, so they lost the majority, basically all the time inside of P2. And then as the rotation towards P3 came, which is what we just watched, they got slayed out. They didn't hold down that map control. They got no time inside of P3, and now we're rotating over towards P4. They don't have initial time inside of P4, but they do have these back spawns as long as they don't get slayed out, right? If they go 4 down, they're going to lose those back jungle spawns, but if you're Dallas, this is already a success. You've been able to cherry pick a couple kills. You've been able to get the first 30 seconds inside of P4 when you really had no business being inside of P4 because you didn't have map positioning. You didn't have those back jungle, back laundry spawns. And even if Chicago now gets this last 20 seconds, you've lost 2/3 of that hill, right? You lost 40 points. You gained 20 points. It is what it is, and now as they're trying to set up a defense inside of P5, you can see on the minimap that there's not a single OpTic member inside of P5. Scump just died trying to get inside of P5. He was able to get the last few seconds of scrap time inside of P4, but it's really inconsequential, right? I mean, who really cares? So they're down by 130, and basically every hill went Dallas's way. P1, P2, Dallas had rotations. P3, they flipped them out. P4, Dallas was able to get through the front and hold down that back choke point inside of P4. And finally, OpTic seems to be getting a little bit of time inside of P5, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this has not been the best start. And also, one thing that I'll point out, you're going to see this when Scump comes up off a spawn right here. Where did he spawn? He spawned over towards garage at P3, right? So think about it. Why has OpTic gotten so much time inside of P5? Because if you're Dallas, you have a 130-point lead, or at least you did. So what's more important? Trying to contest and maybe split the hill inside of P5? Or should we basically just make sure we have map positioning for P2 and P1 first, and then we could start to work our way in towards P5? That's the decision that they made, and that's the biggest reason why OpTic was able to get so much time inside of P5, was because primarily Dallas wasn't really playing for time inside of P5. They were playing to push out the back of P1 and P2. But this is a scrim. I love listening into team comms and hearing exactly what they're doing. We're seeing a little bit of a comeback right here out of OpTic, so it is good to see if you're an OpTic fan. But without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's turn up the team comms so you guys can hear exactly what's going on inside this conversation. And by the way, last thing that I'll mention before we listen in, this is from a few days ago. Dashy and Formal just got to Texas. So I was a little bit... I don't know if they still have some setup to do or what. I expected them to do their first team scrim tonight out of wherever they were going to play, whether it's the Hex quarters or whatever, with everybody on a Dallas ping. But they didn't actually do that. Hopefully it comes, as you're watching this, hopefully it comes tonight or tomorrow. But that's the last thing I wanted to say, is that this scrim was while Formal and Dashy weren't quite yet in Texas. So let's go ahead. Let's listen in.
I'm going cut out. I'm going cut out.
Up to money, one's front, SHOTZZY, one shot front,
Cut out
SHOTZZY.
that, no, two cut out. In money, absolute one's cut out. They're both one shot.
Got me,
money.
No,
Two on time.
Money, Illy, dead.
Kyler's back left.
Or money, right?
And again, this is another rotation over towards P2 where OpTic had initial setup, they had initial time, they had map control. They get shredded through this bottom push over towards cutout and money. Now they don't have time. They're losing the rest of this time, and that lead for Dallas is growing again. Let's listen back in.
I mean, you told me
What
do you say, Bill?
I'm probably chalked. I'm pushed out far as fuck.
I've been
Trying to run.
I'm playing blue van.
Driveway.
Yeah, I'm playing super.
Yo.
I'm really far pushed out right now.
Down the corner, bro.
I'm pushed out water. One's middle zig.
I just spawned out. Don't hold your cam, Bill.
One shot at old.
Bro.
Nice, we just blew that. SHOTZZY's got a 2-piece on rotation.
Yo, streak.
I think I can streak through the window. There's one pushed out water. One's in the window. I streaked in front of you. Whoever's poolside, don't go. They're spawning on me, probably. I'm just getting out of the street.
Front door.
I think they're spawning behind me, maybe, or close.
Lambo dead.
One more back left.
Wait, nice, good up too.
On time.
We blew that so bad, bro.
Yeah, we just.
And you just saw, again, Scump actually had a pretty good map. Scump went 32 and 18. But even there towards the end, you saw that as Dallas was pushing over towards the top by ring, Scump failed to rotate. He was just kind of hanging out in the middle, which is fine if you're hanging out towards the middle, as long as you have spawns. If you don't have spawns, you have to rotate back and make sure you secure that, because if you secured spawn and map control and initial time inside of P3, then it's okay to kind of wander around mid-map, get kills, try to get kills in those chokes as Dallas is rotating through mid-map or bottom map or wherever. But you can't do that if it's 2v2 inside the next hill, and if you're not there, you're going to end up losing those spawns, those rotation, that initial hill time. So maybe a little bit of a mistake. He did have a good map overall, as we said, 32 and 18. But as we look at the damage numbers, Scump had 4,600 damage. Dashy was next with 3,500. Formal had 26. Envoy had 2,200. Basically half of what Scump did. That's just not going to get it done. I wish that we could look at the damage numbers on the other side, but unfortunately his camera's in the way. But just looking at score, that's another big thing. SHOTZZY only had 2,800 damage, but he had a score of 6,200. So what does that tell you? He went on a rather large streak. He obviously would have had kill streaks. They didn't need to call them, but you don't go on a score on a streak or gather a score of 6,200, especially on a map that was pretty short like this one was, if you weren't going on a streak and getting kill streaks and stuff like that. So if you guys are new around here, you enjoy these sort of breakdowns. Usually I bring up a mini map and I draw on screen and I talk through it, but there just wasn't really a scenario to do that today. But if you're new around here, you enjoy this sort of content, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a like if you don't mind, as it really helps out the channel. And with that, guys, thank you so much. We will see you in tomorrow's upload.